Hello, and welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And today we're kind of deviating from my favorite subjects in other things. And I'm going to discuss the process of, you know, getting back to yourself. Like, and that may look like a spiritual awakening. That could look like finding your sanity. It could look like uh, putting together all your fragmented parts from all the disassociation that's required to survive in this modern world during this time. And everyone at different points in their life goes through things. It could be a traumatic event, or it could be a long, drawn out, unpleasant experience that gets worse and worse until you find yourself burnout, tired, broken, and you've lost yourself. Maybe you overgave in a relationship. Maybe lost a career. You lost a sense of meaning and purpose. Usually, at some point, we lose our identity and we become the character. And so, I feel like we've tried to put ourselves back together through spiritual and religious practices, through scientific means, and yes, even magic. And we put our hope and faith in things unknown, unseen. We put our trust in gurus and teachers, and yet here we are. The same old situation, the same old us that maybe has become so toxic we can't stand ourselves. We've bought into self deprecation, not valuing ourselves, um, and thinking very low of ourselves. And, we go to therapists, we go to counselors, we take medications, we seek entertainment, we seek pleasure, we seek material things, and yet nothing fills the void and everything is empty. And everyone has their truths, but it doesn't really apply to you. So you might think you're a hopeless case. And you might say, this is the human experience, you know, um, and all that good I'm unworthy of. Or for some odd reason, I can't maintain a healthy relationship. Or negative people are attracted to me, bad situations. And it may manifest as poor finances, it may manifest as poor health, um, poor relationships with family, friends, and loved ones, with your society, and your attitude and perspective on life. And so you're having a miserable time. You have basically fallen into the abyss and you're not happy. You may even go so far to try to bleed out on other people and subject them to your pessimism, your negativity, and start to enroll people into your negative view, and you become a toxic personality. Um, you might even somewhere have a belief that you're bad, you're cursed, you're damned. And then you say, well, I might as well join them. And you engage in criminal activity, harming yourself, harming others, and really in the end, only harming yourself, you know? And I think we all go through this at various levels and different levels of understanding. And there seems to be, it's like someone is holding the truth from us. It's like there's a mystery, and people just say, well, it's a mystery, no one can solve it, or maybe in the future we'll have that magic pill, or we'll have technology, or something will save us. We might give it to an unprovable, invisible God. We might call it magic. We might call it fifth dimensional, multi-dimensional thinking. We might give it new age terms. uh, a lot of storytelling and myth making about a hopeful tomorrow that doesn't solve your problems right here, right now, today. And sometimes it's very hard to spend time with yourself, to look inside, especially if you have some limiting beliefs and attitudes. And so basically, what I am presenting is hopefully a non spiritual, non magical uh, perspective on a training I went through. So I went through a corporate training, and it was pretty popular in the city that I'm from. And it goes in three phases. Recognize your psychological garbage, and then recognize basically how you constructed it and how you can deconstruct it and basically get back to yourself, you know, without psychological terms, without spiritual terminology and woo woo magical things. You should be able to reconnect with yourself and not add another layer of confusion on it. So, the disclaimer is, can you approach, can you get something elevated, an elevated, mystical, euphoric experience from this knowledge? Yes. But it's always best to be grounded and solid and be able to have a real uh, personal experience uh, without all that. It should be automatically installed in you for being a human being, for being a consciousness, for being awareness, for being presence itself. Uh, so, I may slip in some words like divine, uh, and those can be triggering for people. Uh, so I will try to keep that all out. Is it necessary? No. And that's really what I want to get to. So let's go right into this, maybe. The outline actually is 3-step process. So when I went through this corporate training, it was during a weekend, and you would go for 3 days, you would learn all this stuff, you'd be in class for like 8 hours, you'd do some activities. And through these processes with people, these interactions, witnessing, interacting, learning, engaging, journaling, uh, going over these 3-day workshops, you would have like an accelerated, I would almost call it a rebirth process, you know, or just, undoing some garbage in your life. And so the first level was to become aware of, some people call it the shadow self, but I think that's a hyped, triggering word. It would, it would be just becoming aware of the thoughts, the feelings, the attitudes, beliefs, the habits that you have that create an identity, that create the character on stage. Once, because a lot of us, we're not aware that we constantly create it, recreate it, live in it, and it is basically living our lives, you know? Without the awareness that, whoa, this was manufactured. This is an avatar. This is a character, you know, that I have subscribed to, that I've said yes to on some level, and have worked hard to build and create and maintain. Uh, if you're not aware of that, you can't really become aware of the potential that you are. And this is really kind of where we're going. How do I shed or break free from this psychological prison, this character that's become me, you know? And so this character is basically made up. So I like to draw a box, literally. And I've drawn this multiple times. And so here's a picture of the box. But basically, I divide it into 4 quadrants. There's a centerpiece, and there's for places. And on one of those sides, if you want to do the activity with me, you can, or you can just, do this later, or just kind of get the idea of it. Let's start off with stories. People have always been projecting onto you. They projected you were a good boy or a bad girl or whatever. You're an A student. You know, the whole world has been talking to you, projecting at you, telling a story about you, and maybe they have an agenda for you. Like, I want you to grow up and be this when you grow up. So you're going to play the piano and you're going to get straight A's and you're going to travel around the world and be a musician. And we're going to be so proud of you. And you kind of didn't have a choice, And so your environment and the way you grew up is a really big deal. And it starts programming you with sensations of right and wrong, good or bad. I'll get punished or I won't survive if I behave a certain way. And so that starts closing you in to a psychological prison, a box, a shell, a character, And so a lot of people have to stuff down uh, truths about themselves. It could be gender identity. It could be ambition. Oh, ambition's frowned upon. It could be self-worth. You know what? I really think I'm awesome. Oh, not in this family, not in this religion, not in this culture. I need permission. I have to have a degree to open my mouth and share my truth. So we get groomed to be acceptable, to survive, and this is happening possibly in the womb and throughout your life. So you have a story, and if you're not looking at your story, there is a lot of information there for you to dismantle, to look at. So the first invitation is to look at the story that was written for you and is narrating and directing your life. Like, the first thing we want to do is start directing and narrating and writing our own script. Be empowered. Instead of being a character taking direction from, I would say, outside sources. And that could be collectively at like a religion, or even collectively like a government, an attitude. So already people could be getting very triggered. They could be like, I am my faith. I am my gender. I am my career. I am the role that I play in life, like a mother, a good mother, a bad mother, an addict, a criminal. And so we can be triggered and have a lot of emotions inside of our body. And we may not fully understand the need to move those emotions. Emotions are just energy. So we need to start going into a big disclaimer. A lot of people I've witnessed, they like live in their emotions. So some people are taught that the way you feel is who you are. The way you feel is what life is all about. And a lot of people make choices at big decisions and determine who they are by the way they're feeling. But feelings ebb and flow, come and go. And so I'm going to say, Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling till it naturally disperses. This is how you release deep emotions stored in your tissue, stored in your memory, and in your programming. To You may not know how to identify it or put a name or a label to it. You might start feeling uncomfortable. You might be feeling afraid. You might be feeling anxiety. You might be feeling anger. Those emotions are surface. And that's the level you're willing to look at. Underneath it are deeper feelings like fear, I would say loss, like grief, abandonment, uh, you know. And so the invitation is to slowly breathe, sit with the feelings, and as they arise, and maybe you might feel rage, you might feel deep resentment, deep hostility towards others. Sit with it, let it flow through you, let it move, and then it will be on its way, and then you can continue being rational. Then you can continue becoming aware. And so the first level is awareness. And the big invitation is we're going to look, we're going to examine uh, the story that we wrote ourselves and the story that was wrote for us. And you can do that on your own time with journaling. And so life will constantly be throwing back at you uh, the content that you haven't looked at for you to look at it. Feelings will come up that haven't been processed. How do we process our feelings? Just by sitting with them. How do we process our thoughts? Just by sitting with it. So a lot of people are afraid to just be with themselves. You know, they turn on Netflix or they have an urge to go call a friend. And what I call that becoming unconscious, sleepwalking. They might have a deep urge to go work out extra 3 times a day, you know? So, like, how do we know when a healthy activity is now serving us in a negative way by keeping us distracted? It's great. Watch a movie every once in a while. Don't watch one every single night. Don't watch 3 every single day. You know, so we monitor our social media hours. It's great to gather information. How much information are you gathering? You know, is it really serving you? Is it serving you to go unconscious? To not look at the shadow material? To not look at what we swept under the rug? And so the big invitation for level 1 is create safety. We don't really look at things if we feel threatened. You know, we go straight into fight, flight, and freeze. And a lot of us just will, if it looks like a problem, we might just go straight into fight. These are people who are going to argue, debate, resist. So if you're one of those, what I call tough battlers, you could be doing it silently inside of yourself. You know, I'm not going to look at this. I feel triggered. However, I feel it's good, it's healthy. And you might argue yourself into keeping it. You might fight for, go to war for your toxic behaviors, your pain, your martyrdom, your victim, your base. Yeah. And so, one of the big roadblocks towards progress in all areas of life, whether you're going to a professional therapist or whether you're just looking at yourself, is we often fight for our need to be right. And why do we need to be right? To justify the things that are so wrong within us that need to change, that are ready for transformation, that are ready for excavation, an overhaul, you know, and a removal. Like, you can't stay the same person and expect to be happy. Everything is moving. The stars are moving. The planets are moving. Everything is expanding and contracting. Why would you expect yourself not to ebb and flow in personality, in emotions, in thoughts and feelings. Why would you expect yourself not to evolve? So a lot of us are resisting the call to grow, the call to expand. And when you grow and expand, you create energy, and there is life. So, what is depression? It's a surface feeling of actually fighting uh, the inner content that wants to erupt, that wants to come to the surface of your consciousness. So, the chakra system isn't just a spiritual system, it's a neatly organized biological memory system. So, stuff that we stuff deep, deep down was put there at a very young age. So, birth is considered the bottom of your spinal cord, the tip of your tailbone, all that potential energy. And if you're not allowed to express it, it can become very dense, very troublesome, and it could lead to all kinds of things, physical illnesses, energy problems, uh, and so it can go either way. You could be experiencing no energy, or you could be experiencing too much energy. So that it can go either way, but it's always a call to look at it. It's always an invitation. Whatever problem is going on in your life, it's an invitation to bring more awareness, more compassion, uh, to that, you know, to unblock it and free the energy and let it flow. So it can go different. This conversation can go so many different levels, but let's just try to keep it super basic. So, what are we doing? We're looking under the carpet. We're looking at, instead of just the surface, the symptoms that our five senses can see and react to. We want to look a little bit deeper. We want to trust our intuition, use our feelings, be mindful about how we're thinking and we're feeling, so we're becoming observant and aware. And we're now being asked to say, okay, this matrix, this self-generated prison, this identity, this character on stage was created, and I created it by accepting, consciously or unconsciously, stories put onto me, given to me, handed down through generations. So some people use their race to identify with certain characteristics. They use their family heritage, their genealogy. They use story, history, so they can borrow from their ancestors, borrow from their culture, borrow from their species, you know? Or it could be more simplified. You just borrow from TV shows, borrow from lyrics and music. You borrow all this, you weave together a sense of self, and you're like, this is who I am, this is what I'm fighting for, these are the yeses, these are the nos in my life, this is the direction I'm going, and this is what I want to experience. Is this okay? Yeah. Is it wrong? No. But wouldn't it be awesome if you knew consciously how you constructed it, and you also knew you could change it at any time? Everything is here to serve you. There's no right or wrong. There's no punishment. There's no humiliation. So let's create what I like to call safe space. Permission to scream, permission to yell, permission to hate ourselves, permission to love ourselves, permission to feel and think and explore and discover. When you allow yourself this permission, everything can come up and not be so dramatic. You don't have to be a drama queen. You don't have to go into blame. You don't have to go into self beat up. You don't have to go into deep levels of shaming yourself, hurting yourself. Abuse is not required to grow. Pain is not required to move through a lot of heavy, dense, shadowy material. The reality is, once you become aware of it, it automatically starts moving on out. So, awareness is really important. And so, creating time for yourself, turning off social media, um, having a quiet space for yourself, a comforting, healing space for yourself, a neutral space for yourself will give you time to do a deep dive, self-reflect, and you might find it's very therapeutic and pleasurable. So, with all this repressed energy and all this content stored within inside of us, it feels heavy sometimes and negative and confusing and dark and dirty. Guess what? That exact same energy, once you bring the light of awareness to it, your consciousness, once you're mindful and you feel it and you're with it, it actually turns into fuel, and you'll break through. It's like a laser beam hitting like an asteroid. It will break, and it will burn, and it will explode, and then there'll be even more energy. And so each time you feel a pull to go in, each time you have a breakdown, each time you have a disruption, each time you have a conflict, those are invitations to look under the rug. Some of them are forced, and we call it a midlife crisis. We call it a catastrophe. We call it a great loss, a tower moment. Those forced moments, instead of seeing them as scary with a whole bunch of superstitious, instead of thinking we're unlucky and putting a label on it, a layered, instead of, those are all ways of resisting it. Instead, go, this is the invitation to look at something and transform it, and this will give me power. Whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. So we go straight into ow and then into thank you. So so it is really a choice. You can look at this stuff and go, oh God, I have a lot to clean up, and this is going to be a long process, and I'm more dysfunctional than I thought I was. Or you can be like, wow, here's an adventure. And all this unexplored territory is waiting for me. There's a whole inner landscape, and I can clean it up, and I can transform it, and its fuel and its energy, and it will actually become your light. It will become literally, it will become the light. It'll become a source of inspiration. You'll be like, now that I've gone through this, I understand it. Now that I've gone through this, I have context. Now that I've gone through this, I can relate to other people on a deeper level. I'm growing, I'm evolving. Well, that's kind of the opposite of a victim story, of blaming and judging and criticizing others. My parents didn't give me this, my culture, my race, my gender, this time period, no more self-deprecation, no more self-beat up, no more becoming a black sheep, no more becoming a target or a victim or a martyr. Anytime you're bringing up that kind of stuff, you're heavily resisting your own evolution. So we're going to kind of leave this video here. It was packed with a lot of information, and there's really a lot to get out. And I kind of just came at you throwing stuff at you all at once on all different angles. I was kind of shutting doors, saying don't go there, don't go there. So let's kind of wrap it up. So let's go back to this box. So when I went through this program, this is the one thing I remember. And there was even a space I didn't know. And there's a lot of stories, a lot of great memories, a lot of awesome stuff going on. Uh, but going back to the box, one one angle of the box is your belief system. It is uh, these beliefs that you have. Like you believe whatever. You have a whole bunch of beliefs. You have names, and you've named things, and you've labeled things. You've judged things, you've assumed things, you criticize things, but it all comes from the realm of beliefs. Through certain experiences, you told a story, they had conclusions. You know, certain people are good, certain people are bad, certain jobs are great. So certain jobs are bad. So now I don't like myself because I'm in one of those jobs that I deemed bad. Certain ages are good, certain ages are bad. Oh no, now I'm in this age where I've been fearing it, condemning it, and then now here I am. So now you label it worthless. Now, you're not contributing to society, in need. Oh, some people fear um, being in need, which is an opportunity to receive, an opportunity to serve. So, just generally looking at our beliefs, uh, we're going to have to continue this into the next video. But one of the other legs is the programming, environmental conditioning, your history, your genetics, um, and more story programming. So one of these legs is really more about the full programming, I would say. The other leg is, or angle of the box, is these feelings that you have. A lot of people just sit in depression or sit in anxiety, sit in fear, guilt, shame, regret, disappointment, uh, pain, just a whole bunch of pain, emotional pain, you know. And so we usually pick a few emotions that we're comfortable with, and we find we just sit in it. Um, and you could even have some positive ones that are become toxic. There is such thing as too much love, too much romance, and you're now out of balance, and you're using it for other reasons, but basically feelings. So one of the legs is feelings. And then the last leg is the habits, rituals, and behaviors that we repeatedly do to stay who we are. So it's kind of like, and everything is changing. So we use repetition to maintain it. We tell ourselves stories over and over again to remember them, to keep identifying with it moment to moment to moment, year after year after year, day after day after day. And it solidifies, but really